Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Discussions. Today we are going to talk about PlayStation 5.
For the players.
Alright, so today we're not really going to talk about a lot of the sort of like software and increases in gigabytes and all that crap. Like if you want to see all that, that's on the website. There's an article about it. So we're just going to talk about like basic hardware stuff that'll it'll improve the way we play games. Things like things they've changed on the controller, which I assume will be called the DualShock 5, because why change a good thing? And it'll be things like the way it's speeding up games. Like I don't know if you saw, but a few months ago before they'd announced PlayStation 5. It was just called New Project or Next Generation Console. And they showed the speed of that against the PlayStation 4 Pro, which most of you will have, I assume, if you're watching this video. And they showed Spider-Man 4 being loaded into the PS4 Pro, and it loads like the whole thing in 8.5 seconds, which is really quick considering the loading times we used to have to sit through back in like the PS1, PS2 days, and every time you walk through a door in Skyrim. And then they showed it next to the next generation console where it loaded the entire thing in 0.8 seconds, which is ridiculous. They're eliminating loading times. Now obviously games will have loading times in them because as technology improves, people put more things in games and it adds a strain to stuff. So like I'm not saying that loading times are gone forever, we're not going to get them, but games like God of War, where loading times are like very, in fact there are no loading times, the game loads and you get what's referred to as hidden loading screens, which are things like tapping circle to open a gate and things like that, where it takes time to do stuff and it forces you to do that so we can render the next bit of the game. The Witcher, which I've just started replaying because I have a problem, and it's like it's one of those things you don't realize until you have to do it. Like the game does not load anytime you walk through a door. Like it doesn't happen. You're loaded into the game and it's there. That's why there's so much empty space between like major cities and settlements, is because it can generate random stuff, and that like saves it from having to load the entire game at once. But with games like the PS5, that becomes more possible because the hardware is so much more powerful that it can load vast amounts of stuff. We won't have the Skyrim problem where the major downfall of that game was having to wait 5 minutes in between walking through a door, and then every time you walk through the wrong door, you have to wait 15 minutes before you can get to where you actually wanted to go. That won't happen anymore. But I think the major thing they've added to this console is the tech they've put into the controllers. They've really put a lot of detail and they've put a lot of love into this, because things you don't even think about when you play games, they've changed. So they've taken what is referred to as rumble technology, and they've taken all of that out. So the vibration isn't just like the same vibration you have in every single game that has ever replaced it what to as haptic technology, which means it can be programmed, which means that like when you're playing a sports game and you make a tackle, it's not going to feel the same as when you're playing a driving game and you crash into a car, or you're in a battle and you have a sword fight. It's going to completely, like, they're going to be able to completely control how the controller feels in your hand as you're playing. It's insane technology, and it's to quote them themselves, it increases immersion. Because the announcement for this console, it was immersion and like realism. Those are the two things they're going for at all times. They want you to disappear into these games when you're playing them, it's what games are for. Like, you don't play a game so you can go, I'm sure that artist did a really good job on that tree. Like, you go in to play a story, become another person, and just have fun. The other thing they've added to the controller is they've added programmable sensitivity into the L2 and R2 triggers on the controller, which means that a game developer can now program the resistance on the L2 and R2 to make it feel like you have genuine control. So when you're driving a car, how much you press the L2 and R2 actually affects like how much acceleration you have, which gives you like more control. And I think the other example they used was when you're like pulling a bowstring, like the amount of power you put into a bow like string pull is like directly affected by how far you push like an L2 or R2 trigger in, which is just, and again, all that does is it increases immersion, and it makes the controller just as much part of the game, not just a controller. It's a tool you have to get through these games. The only thing I'll really talk about for the rest of this is just a couple of their quality of life aspects of the thing. Like obviously it's going to be able to play movies, but they haven't just put the same DVD player in that they put in every single one. So it's still going to be able to play Blu-ray DVDs, but it's also going to be able to play 4K, because that's going to be a big focus on like the next generation. I think everything will be 4K compatible. Realistically, 4K is the future of TV. It's the new HD. And the other big announcement, which I think some of us suspected, but most of us were unsure of whether or not we were getting, was backwards compatibility, which it was a major part that was left out of the PS4, because like the PS3 had such a great like back catalog of games that it seemed weird not to have access to those. And with what has been a truly outstanding generation for video games in the PS4, with so many PS exclusives, you've got Uncharted, you've got Last of Us, you've got Death Stranding, you've got the God of War, Spider-Man PS4, like all of these games are so good. It would have been silly for them not to let us have those games. So it will only be backwards compatible for PS4 and PlayStation VR games, which I assume another PlayStation VR will be released alongside it. It's just not announced yet, but that's just pure speculation. But things like adding a more powerful DVD player and having backwards compatibility, it doesn't affect the console itself, but it affects the way we like view it. So it's just, they've clearly thought about what we want as players. So if you want to know more about it, go and read the article online. We're at Real Talk PCD.com. All of our social media is Real Talk Pop Culture Discussions, except for Twitter, which I think is @real_pop. You can follow me at Review by Lurch. Remember that the PlayStation 5 is released by Christmas next year, and keep it real.